Assalamualaikum and hi to Madam Asma and classmate. So today our group will present the last topic in this subject, which is personality approach. So this is our mind map for this topic that split into two main subtopics. First is type of personality approach and then second is personality theory. First of all, there are four types of personality approach that include trait theories, which mean attempts to learn what traits make up personality and how they relate to the actual behavior. Second is psychodynamic theories, which focus on the inner working of personality, especially internal conflict and struggle. And then is humanity theory, which means focus on private, subjective experience and personal growth. And last is social cognitive theory, which means attribute different in personality to socialization, expectation, and mental processes. So next, I will explain a little bit about Carl Jung theory. Carl Jung was a psychiatrist who developed a theory based around 8 personality types. He was highly influenced by the finding and work of Sigmund Freud and formed a tight relationship with him until he was invited to a club conference in 1909. Freud had a major impact on Jung's thoughts and led to his theory of personality. True personality types according to the Jung theory are introvert and extrovert. Introvert is a person whose interest is generally directed inward toward his own feeling and thoughts, and typical introvert people is shy, contemplative, and reserved. But for extrovert is a person whose attention is directed toward other people and the outside world. The extrovert is characterized by outgoingness and the ability to make a quick decision. Carl Jung recognized that both introvert and extrovert reflect a bipolar trait named introversion-extraversion. In this case, almost no one can be accurately described as wholly extrovert or introvert. So, the correct term used to recognize these people are ambivert. Ambivert is an individual that displays a mixture of both introvert and extrovert behavior. Jung starts his explanation on personality by stating four functions, which is feeling, thinking, sensation, and intuition.
Hi, madam and my friends. I am going to explain about Hippocrates' theory of personality. His theory of four humors states that the human body is made up of four substances, which are referred to as humors. So they are black bile, yellow bile, blood, and phlegms. He also states that in order to maintain good health, we have to balance all of the four humors in our body perfectly. But what if we are unable to do so? When we fail to do so, it will lead to illness or disease, and the way to treat the disease is to regain the balance between the four humors. Besides, the imbalance between the four humors can also affect how people think, feel, and act. And this is what led to the existence of four temperaments, including melancholic, choleric, sanguine, and phlegmatic. So the melancholic is a temperament where the black bile predominates. Some of the examples of the personality is depression, perfectionism, attention to details, punctual, and love traditions. Next, choleric is a temperament where the yellow bile predominates. Some examples of the personality are irritability, goal-oriented, pragmatism, love to systematize, as well as analytical and logical. Other than that, sanguine is a temperament where the blood predominates. People with this temperament are usually talkative, optimistic, love adventure, creative, and cheerful. Lastly, phlegmatic is a temperament where the phlegm predominates. People with this temperament are usually associated with sluggishness, calm, peaceful, harmony, great performer, and reliable.
Good morning to our madam and my fellow friends. I'm going to talk about Raymond Cattell's theory. First, let me explain about the source and also surface trait. Raymond Cattell used several techniques, including the new statistical technique of common factor analysis, to elucidate the major underlying dimensions within the normal personality sphere. Cattell disagreed with Eisen's view that personality can be understood by looking at only 2 or 3 dimensions of behavior. Instead, he argued that it was necessary to look at much larger number of traits in order to get a complete picture of someone's personality, whereas Eisen based his theory based on responses of hospitalized servicemen. So, Cattell collected data from a range of people through 3 different sources of data. L data is a life record data which is obtained from our real life, such as school grades and absence from work. Q data is a questionnaire designed to rate an individual's personality, which is known as the 16th personality factor. T data is a data from objective tests designed to tap into a personality construct. Cattell analyzed the T data and Q data using a mathematical technique called factor analysis to look at which type of behavior tended to be grouped together in same people. He identified 16 personality traits or factors which is common to all people. These three L, Q and T data leads to the discovery of surface and also source trait, and from that the source trait was further developed into 16 personality factors. According to Cattell, surface traits are easily observed behaviors, while source traits are the underlying trait which are the basic building blocks of personality. He proposed that source traits are less visible than the surface traits, but they are more important in accounting for behavior. The source traits are the important goal as they lead to the 16th personality factor, which is known as 16PF. Let me give some example to further understand the surface and source trait. Surface traits can be observed directly through the behavior usually in everyday life. For example, shy, quiet and disliking crowds. All these traits combine to form one single source trait, which is the core personality. For example, being shy, quiet and disliking crowds all can be categorized as one trait, which is introversion. There are 16 traits which form the personality, which Aki will explain the next.
Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Akizuddin and today I will be explaining about Raymond Cattell's personality theory. According to Cattell, there are basic categories of human personalities, but this topic has been covered by Wilson, so we have to move on. Cattell proposed a theory that human personalities can be empirically determined. Therefore, in the 20th century, he came up with a personality test, the 16PF test or the 16 personality factor test. The purpose of the 16PF test was to determine empirically a person's personality based on a questionnaire that required self-reflection. These are practically useful as it is a tool for psychotherapists to diagnose patients, counselors to help their clients, or even people that are just out of school and in need of direction in life. For evaluation, we have to know the format of the test. First, by considering the context of the assessment, whether it is for career development, diagnosis of mental disorder, or leadership development, and so on. And then we have to evaluate the responses style indexes by first checking responses on factor B, and then looking at the scores on infrequency, impression management, and acquiescence scale, of which later we will look into. Thirdly, we have to evaluate the global skill score. After that, we have to evaluate the primary scale in the context of global scale. And lastly, we have to integrate the PF result in relation to the context of assessment question. And now we have the acquiescence, infrequency, and impression management scale. Firstly is the impression management scale, of which is a scale that has extreme opposite qualities. High score reflect a variety of socially desirable responses, while low score reflect a variety of undesirable responses. Secondly, we have the acquiescence scale. It is a scale of which to determine to which degree the examiner agreed with the item regardless of what was being asked. Thirdly, we have the infrequency scale. Compromises of most statistically uncommon responses to the test, which are all the middle B responses appear in the test booklet with a question mark. This response acts as a middle ground of the two opposite extremes of the question. And then we have the 16 primary factors and its opposite. First, we have the warmth, reasoning, emotional stability, dominance, liveliness, role consciousness, social boldness, sensitivity, vigilance, abstractedness, privateness, apprehension, openness to change, self-reliance, perfectionism, and tension. And now we have the global factors. Firstly is introversion or extroversion. Second is low anxiety or high anxiety. Third is receptivity or willpower. The fourth is accommodation or independence, and the fifth is the lack of self-restraint or self-control. And then we have the relation of primary factor and the global factor, such as shown below. Last but not least, we have the additional notes, of which is a further reading about previously
Next,
mentioned
in
skills.
the personality chapter, we also have Freud's theory. So, who is Freud? So, Sigmund Freud is an Austrian neurologist and also considered as the founder of the psychoanalysis approach to psychology. What is psychoanalysis? It is which looks into the unconscious drive to explain human behavior. So Sigmund Freud believed that the person's mind is responsible for both conscious and unconscious decisions that it makes on the basis of psychological drives. So Sigmund Freud also developed models of psychic structure which consists of the aspect of a person's mind. So Freud's theory. Sigmund Freud believed that a person's personality comprised of three aspects of the mind, which is the first one, id, ego, and also superego. So I will explain more about it. It is something that present at birth and which represent the psychological expression of the biological drives. For example, the feeling of hunger and thirst. It is derived from the Latin word and simply means eat. It present in since a person's birth, and it will stay and never depart as much as a part of the adult personality. Based on the Freud's theory regarding it, it follows the pleasure principle, which means that it seeks relief from hunger, thirst, and also other irritating states. That's all from me for the Freud story. Next will be explain more about ego and superego. So thank you.
Okay, let's continue to the next aspect of mind, which is ego. First of all, ego is not the same as how we usually define it. Usually we say ego is like the it or it in psychological that Zikri just presented. So it is actually not like that. Ego here in Freud's theory refers to the realistic part of mind, which is the in-between of superego and it. Or in other words, is the neutral one. Usually, the ego part of mind will consider a safe and acceptable to society ways of fulfilling the demands of it. Now, the ego part of mind resides in both conscious and preconscious part of brain. Now, for the last aspect of mind, which is superego. Yes, you know, superego here means the good side of mind or the virtuous side of mind, since we already covered the neutral and the bad side of mind, which is the ego and it. And in Freud's theory here, superego followed ideal principle, which means the imaginary picture of how a person ought to be and act or behave in a society. Usually, superego will go against its demands and find a virtuous decisions. Let's say you have like two popsicles and you have a brother. Its demand wants you to have both, but the superego wants to give your brother both of them. That's how it is. And superego here resides in all of brain's consciousness. Sigmund Freud believed that the superego is essentially the human conscious. So, in conclusion, human minds are comprised of these three things, which is basically desires, reality, and morality. Human decisions are usually made based off these three factors, and these three factors we can also use it to factor in their personality. So that can greatly help psychologists nowadays to determine their patient's personality so that they can further help them and solve their problems.